acx.com to get your existing Kindle book onto Audible, Apple Books, and Amazon, and use findawayvoices.com to get your books onto Walmart, Barnes & Noble, Google Books, Spotify, and so much more. I'm Robert Plank. My companies are DFY Podcast and DFY Narration. Now, if you're an author, you might have heard of this tiny little website called Audible. Audible is owned by Amazon.com. They have 27 million monthly subscribers. And you might know that the highest income earners don't always read books. Sometimes they listen to books. So if you don't have your book available on Audible in audiobook format, then you're really missing out. In the same way, like let's say your website was on Yahoo but not on Google. Let's say that your book was in paperback but not in digital Kindle format. Likewise, if you are not in audiobook form, you're missing out. And let's talk about what's required, because you basically have three options in front of you. Option number one, you can contact me at DFY Narration, and for a single flat fee, I'll narrate your book and publish it onto Audible, where you keep all the royalties and all the copyrights. It is still completely yours. You just pay me the one-time fee, I read your words, and I put it onto Audible. Option number two is that you try to do it all yourself, and I'll walk you through some of those steps today. And then option number three is that perhaps you as the author narrate your own book and then contact me, and I'll do the many steps to get your book onto Audible. But either way, if you do the fully done by Robert Plank option, if you do the Robert just uploads it, or you do the part where you narrate and upload it, let me walk you through the steps and tell you how we do this. So if you have ever published a book on Amazon, you know that you go into a distribution site to get the book online. To get your book on Kindle, you go to a website called KDP. I believe that stands for Kindle Direct Publishing. And then if you want to get your book onto Audible, which is owned by Amazon, just to be clear, you go to a website called ACX, which I also believe stands for Audiobook Creation Exchange. You go to acx.com, you go, and I think you can just try using your existing Amazon.com login. And if not, you create an account. But it's very important when you create this account that you fill in your business tax information. They ask you for your business entity name, your business tax number, such as your EIN, and then the state where you do business. And so ACX is kind of the default option for you if you are based in the United States. And if you're not in the United States, we'll get to Findaway Voices in a minute. But the main site is acx.com. And if you were just a U.S. American and you only wanted to sell your book on Audible, you would just go to acx.com. You then, when you log in, you click on Claim Your Title. And then you do a search here, and you search your name. And if you find a book that you want to publish on Audible, you click on Claim Title, make sure that it's actually your book. And then instead of working with a producer, don't do this, use my own audio files. And once you do that, you'll have to fill in a couple of things, but then you'll end up on a web page where this is the In Production tab, and you will be able to do a few things. You first add your cover, right? They want a square cover. I recommend you do a 3000 by 3000 pixels, and you need to make sure that this bottom right corner is not obscured, because Audible sometimes adds a ribbon. So you click on this, you upload your cover, JPEG or PNG file. That's the first step. And then you upload these different audio tracks. And what you do is, if you have an introduction chapter, then you have an audio file that you record and you say introduction. Then read out the introduction chapter word for word. Now, if you want to ad-lib, technically you can. Audible is not a stickler as far as your words exactly matching, so it doesn't have to be word for word, but just to keep it simple, I recommend you do that. Then, if you have chapter 1, you say, chapter 1, get your act together and get it done. So the name of the chapter, the number, then the name, and you read out all of chapter 1, and so on until you get through all of your chapters. How do you record? You use Audacity, but don't get ahead of ourselves. We'll talk about that in a minute as well. So you speak out these different chapters, and then they also want you to speak out the opening credits, the closing credits, and the retail sample. And I'll just walk you through really quick on the fly here what that entails. And I'll open up one of my favorite people. His name is Ralph Estep Jr. And what Ralph would do here is he recently recorded his audiobook. He's a podcasting client of ours at DFY Podcast. And I said, hey, Ralph, you don't have an audiobook version created. And in a couple of hours, he was so excited, he spoke out his entire audiobook, and his audiobook button is not quite live yet. Any day now, Audible will approve it. It takes them 2 weeks to approve, but as soon as it does, then the audiobook button will appear here. And if we search his name or his book title or his keywords on audible.com, someone can find that as well. But Mr. Ralph V. Estep Jr., Estep Jr., I think, would do the following. For his opening credits, he would say, Mastering Your Finances, a comprehensive guide to creating a personal financial plan. Written by Ralph V. Estep Jr. Narrated by Ralph V. Estep Jr. So I hope that made sense. For this opening credits file that they're asking for, you state the name of your book, then the subtitle, then the author name, then the narrator name, keeping in mind that all three of these things must match. I would say that the number one reason why a book is not approved on Audible is because the title and author that's listed here in the text form does not match the cover exactly. So if this cover just said Ralph Estep, if this cover just said Ralph Estep Jr., both of those would be disapproved by Audible. This has to match the cover, and it also has to match the opening credits that you speak out. Okay, opening credits, easy enough. I get once you know what to say. Closing credits, a little more involved, but it begins the same way as the opening credits, and let me walk you through this. This has been Mastering Your Finances, a comprehensive guide to creating a personal financial plan. Written by Ralph V. Estep Jr. Narrated by Ralph V. Estep Jr. Copyright 2023, Ralph V. Estep Jr. Production copyright, Ralph V. Estep Jr. So what did we just say? We said the words, this has been, the title and subtitle of the book. Then we say the author's name, we say the narrator's name, and then we say production copyright, we say copyright and then the year, and then the name of the copyright holder again, and then we say production copyright, and then just the name of the copyright holder. And I have been in situations as an audiobook narrator. It's later than 2023. It's a few more years in the future than 2023, but I have narrated 721 different audiobooks. Some have my name on them, some not, but sometimes I narrate a book and the copyright of the book itself belongs to the author, but then the audiobook production belongs to the publisher. And so just to recap, this has been title, subtitle, written by author name, narrated by author name, copyright year, whoever owns the copyright, and then production copyright, whoever owns the copyright. And then that file goes into the closing credits there. And then retail audio sample. So there's two ways you can do it. Either you can go and find like a short chapter or a clip of your book, but what I really do by default is I read the Amazon book description. So here is the book that already exists on Kindle, and I should take a bit of a detour by saying that you cannot publish your book as just an audiobook on Audible. Your book must exist as a Kindle book. You don't have to have a paperback necessarily, but you must have a digital Kindle version, and then once you get the ACX account, then you can click on that claim your title button, and then you can then link the Kindle book to the audiobook. Make sense? I hope so. Now let's talk about the retail sample. So in ACX, there's this retail audio sample, and what I do as a narrator is I read the description that's available on Amazon. I say mastering, and you don't have to say a heading or anything. You just say mastering your finances. Your personal guide to financial freedom is not just a book. It's your roadmap to a secure and thriving financial future. Penned by a seasoned accountant. This book, and you get the idea, right? We read all of this and and this needs to be 1 to 5 minutes. So if it's short like this, do your best to read it slowly. That way you get to the whole first minute. And if you read all this and you're like 40 seconds, then find something else from the book to get yourself over 1 minute. Your book must be between 1 minute and 5 minutes long for the sample portion that's there. So you record all those things. You have your opening credits, you have your cover, you have your different chapters, you have your closing credits, and you have your retail sample. Now, are you starting to understand why I just want to make this easy for you and for you to go to DFY Narration and have me narrate your whole book or just you record? Now, what if you said that? What if you said, well, I just want to record? And we'll get to that in just one more moment after this, but let me cover Findaway Voices. And I'm not going to log in or show you Findaway Voices, but here's the thing, is that there's 2 reasons why you might use Findaway Voices either instead of or in addition to ACX. Now, Findaway Voices is a company owned by Spotify, and it's another way of getting your audiobook online. So we said by default, if you're an American, you can publish your book to Audible through ACX and make it an exclusive book, which means that Audible will give you 40% royalties of any sales that are made. And so with Audible, you can't set the price. They price it based on the length of the book. And the book, if it is, say, 3 hours, I think it might be like $6.99. If it's 4 or 5 hours, it might be like $7.99 or $9.99. I can't remember the exact breakdown, but basically, short book is just a few dollars. Longer book might be $10 or more. So Audible sets the price. You get 40% royalty if you only publish to Audible through ACX, and your royalty checks come in the similar way as with KDP, which means that in this ACX account, you make an account, you set up your business tax information, and there's also a reminder in your settings to add your bank account information. And by default, they will just direct deposit the monthly royalties 2 months after the sale is made, right there in your account. And I believe there might be an option for a paper check as well. But ACX, you can only use it if I think you're like US and UK. And any other countries, you can't really use ACX, but never fear, there's Findaway Voices. And so, like I said, 2 reasons you might use Findaway Voices. Reason number 1 is that, say you are in the US, and you say, well, I want to be on platforms other than just Audible. So if you get yourself on Audible, then you will be on Audible. There will be a button on your Amazon page, and you will also appear on Apple Books. Something I want to kind of detour again and mention is AI narrated books. Well, at the moment I'm making this video, which is in 2025, I hate dating videos, but fine, whatever. Audible will not allow AI narrated books. They have I think Kindle has an option to like one-click narrate a AI book. It sounds terrible. It sounds fake. It sounds tired. I still believe in human narrators. And if you try to publish an AI narrated book, let's just say Audible probably won't accept it. And if you get caught, I'm not sure if they will delete your account or not, but I know I would never risk it with my own account. Apple Books lets you do an AI narrated book, but Audible, when I'm recording this, definitely does not let you do it. And I don't think it sounds very good anyway. Anyways, so if you are in the US and you say, I want to be on these other audiobook platforms, I want to be on Google Books, Walmart, Spotify, Barnes & Noble, Nook. There's a few others, and there's 42 total. So if you're looking more for search engine optimization and reach, and less for number of sales or royalties, then you can do 2 things. You can publish your book to ACX that is non-exclusive, which means they only give you 25% royalties, but publishing it in that way means you can put it on YouTube for free, you can sell it on your site, and you can put it onto Findaway Voices, which gets you on these other platforms we just said, Spotify, Walmart, Google Books, Barnes & Noble, a few others. So you go to findawayvoices.com and you upload your book there, and you kind of fill in a lot of similar information like book cover and the title and the description. You upload your files, you fill in all these different things. But then when you go to distribute your book, you can choose which of the 42 platforms to send into, and you can uncheck the Audible version, which means that in ACX, it looks on Audible, and then on other platforms, it comes in through Findaway Voices. And I recommend if you're in the US and you want to be on a bunch of platforms, you do it that way, because a book that's published to Audible through ACX, like, it looks a certain way, it looks more like a book. And if it's published on Audible from somewhere else, it like doesn't appear as prominently, let's just say. So, United States, you can just use ACX and be exclusive and get on Audible, or United States, you can publish non-exclusively on Audible, but then also use Findaway Voices to get on other platforms. Now, if you're outside the US, say Australia, India, some of these other countries, then what I do for my authors I narrate for, if you're outside the US, I only publish through Findaway Voices. And Findaway Voices will get you on Audible plus the other platforms. So that's an option for you that maybe you weren't aware was possible, is you can narrate these audio files and upload your cover and your description and your audios onto Findaway Voices. And that takes, instead of 2 weeks for Audible to approve, it takes 30 days for it to appear on all these other platforms. But that is how you would get your book from outside the US on Audible, is through Findaway Voices. And the other question here is, how do we get the audiobook narrated? And that's a whole other issue, but we use a program called Audacity. And this is not an Audacity tutorial, but let me explain to you how this works. So we use Audacity, and then we say tracks, add new stereo track, and then we say I want to record from this microphone, and I'm worried about hitting record. I'm not sure if it will mess up my video, but you would just say I'll only record on this track. I'll name my track Opening Credits, and you would click this record button, speak out those opening credits I mentioned. Then you would say tracks, add new stereo track, solo, and then rename this track to Closing Credits. And you would speak that out, and you would do the same for retail sample. You would do the same for chapter 1. Let's see, chapter 1. And it does not matter what you name these tracks, as long as it's something that makes sense for you. And you need to make sure that you record in a quiet room with no mouse clicks. They will also deny your audiobook. I would say that's the number 2 reason that someone would not approve your audiobook, is if there's like the clicking of a mouse. So I actually have a gaming mouse. I can't even hold it up high enough. It's a gaming mouse, so that when I click, see, like, I'm clicking and you can't really hear it. Unless I really jam it, you can't hear me click my gaming mouse. And so we make sure there's no mouse clicks. And then there's a few different kind of audio rules, which is where we're getting dicey again, which is why even if you insist that you record the book yourself, all I ask is that you maybe use Audacity to record a few of these tracks and then send them to me, and I would be happy to process your files and upload to Audible or Findaway Voices. Not for free. We'll have a button for you to do that, but that's an option for you, is use Audacity to record them on separate tracks, and then leave the rest to me, because they want, like, I think about 1 second of spacing at the beginning of a track, and then up to 5 seconds of spacing at the end of a track. And they have some really specific audio rules for you. They want the noise floor to be at a certain level. They want the peaks and the RMS and the equalization to be certain levels. And it took me many steps to create a kind of processing filter in Audacity to make it work for ACX. And I've uploaded over 100 audiobooks for authors or other people who have narrated their book And so I've done it hundreds of times. I'm very skilled in processing and uploading a book for ACX, for Findaway Voices, for Audible. But one thing I will tell you is, in the spirit of giving you what you need, and just be amazed at how far the technology has come. Sure, you could be a pretentious audiophile, that's file PHILE, and get a bunch of fancy equipment. But here's what I use, okay? This is called a C01U, and this used to be like $100, $120, but the C01U Pro, it's just $50. And it's very no frills. There's not really anything you can adjust on it. It looks like this. It comes with a stand. So technically, all you would really need is just this $50 microphone. The stand comes with it. You just stand it up, and then you can use Audacity. Make sure you've selected the proper microphone and speak out what I told you. Hand the audio files to me. I can create the square cover based on your existing book cover using generative AI. So all you would need to do is record your chapters, record opening and closing and retail sample, and I would do the rest. $50 is all the equipment you really need. You do need like a quiet room, and I personally have like foam padding, not in this room I'm in, but in the usual rooms where I record. And then if you want to get really fancy, what I also have for myself is this $35 arm, and this, you can't see it, but like my microphone is up here, and there's kind of an arm that just kind of like, what are those spinny things that just kind of clamps it to the desk, and that way it's out of reach and you can narrate that way. So $50 C01U microphone, and then I use this Innogear microphone arm stand, and it assembles together pretty intuitively. You just screw it, it plugs in through USB, gets the job done. And that's how you record an audiobook. And I think we covered the bases, right? Like kind of going, we went kind of forward to backward and now backward to forward. You get a C01U microphone. You install Audacity, which is free. You narrate out your opening and closing credits, retail sample. You narrate out each individual chapter. And then at that point, you have your audio files. You can either hand them to me or you go to the proper website to upload. We said ACX is the place where you can get your book onto Audible, especially if you are in the US. But then Findaway Voices is the way to get your book onto Audible if you're outside the US, or if you want to be on those other platforms, keeping in mind that if you're US and you use Findaway Voices, make sure to choose the non-exclusive Audible option. That way you can get on Audible through ACX and onto those other platforms. We said that was Barnes & Noble, Spotify, Walmart, Google Books, using Findaway Voices. And that is the crash course for you. That is what you need to know about getting your book narrated, either by yourself as the author or some other narrator or by me. Get it narrated. That way you can use this platform called Audible, because many people listen but they don't read. I really don't think they care that much if the exact words are narrated by the author. If anything, me as a layperson, I'm impressed when an author has someone else narrate, because it's like, wow, they have a team. They have other people doing this. And I think that what's more important for you as the thought leader, as the content creator, is to be on podcasts, is to record the reels and the videos, and leave the time-consuming stuff, the long, many hours of audiobook narration and the production, leave that to someone like me, Robert Plank from dfynarration.com. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. Let's talk about getting your audiobook narrated using one of those three options. Option 1, you narrate and produce the whole thing yourself. That's fine. Option 2, you narrate, but then you hand the files off to me to get it online for you. I log into your account. You pass me your email and password. It sends you a temporary code to let me in the door. I go and I upload it, and the copyrights remain the same. They remain with you. The royalties remain with you. I just do a job. Or the last and final option is that you have me do all of it. I narrate your book, I upload your book, and still the copyrights remain with you, but I just do kind of a one-stop shop for you. If that sounds good, send me a message. I'm Robert Plank, audiobook narrator and podcast producer, dfynarration.com. You really need to be on Audible, and this was how you do it. Get it done. It's really important. Just think about how long you procrastinated getting your book out there. Don't be one of these people that say, oh, I'll narrate after the holidays. I'll narrate after this, narrate after that. And then too many years pass and, well, now my book's out of date. Now I'm off to something new. Just get your book narrated. It takes Audible 2 weeks to approve. It takes the other platforms 30 days. So as part of your book launch, I highly recommend you get your book manuscript to someone like me to get it done. And that's really the most important piece of this, is you place your order at dfynarration.com, and I ask you to provide me with your book manuscript, usually a PDF file, sometimes a Word document. If you really don't have that, I can buy your book on Kindle and read off of that version, but that's the most important thing, and I'm happy to help you, talk to you, and get your audiobook done for you. Narration. Robert Plank, talk soon.